Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about how to create a user authentication system using PHP coupled with MySQL database and the Bootstrap library. So you might be wondering what an authentication system is. So it is an essential feature for most web applications. Alright? Yes. And it allows users to access their own data and protect their information as such. Do you get that? Okay. So in this tutorial, we are going to be building a simple login system with PHP that will allow users to basically say that they will be able to register, and they would also be able to log in. Okay. And again, they should be able to log out of their account. All right. Now, before you can follow along this tutorial successfully, there are some basic stuff that you need to have on your machine before you can actually get along the tutorial like that. So let's say that we need a web browser. Okay, we need some sort of a web browser installed on our machines before we can be able to actually get through the tutorial. We also need a local server. Okay, need a local server. We also need what we call an IDE, or can call it an editor. Yes, so for the browser, I am going to be using Firefox. So you can make use of Chrome if that is what you have, Edge, and I believe those who are on Windows machine already have Edge installed. Okay, there is also Safari, there is Opera, and so on and so forth, like that. Now with a local server, I'm going to be using what we call XAMPP. Okay, XAMPP. So if you have MAMP installed, MAMP, WAMP, and what have you, do you get it? There are a couple of other ones. Okay, there are a couple of other ones. If you have any other form of a local server, that is fine. Okay, yes, you just have to make sure that the server that is running on your machine can actually run PHP script. Okay, now these ones here, these ones that I've highlighted here, are actually softwares that come with some packages. So for the exam, for instance, it comes with Apache server that will help us run our PHP script. It also have MySQL database built in it. Okay, yes, so it can help us manage, make use of the Apache server package and also MySQL database package. For this one as well, they kind of perform the same thing like that. So just make sure you have one of this installed on your machine and you are good to go. And it is very, very crucial because PHP scripts don't run inside a browser. Unlike JavaScript, PHP scripts run on a server, and that's why we need some sort of local server in order to be able to debug our application. Now we also need an editor or an IDE to be able to type our code. Okay, so for me, I'm going to be using the Visual Studio Code IDE, Visual Studio Code, or can say VS Code. Okay, so if you have Atom, bracket, PHP Storm, and the other ones that are available, if you have any of those, that is fine. Just make sure that you have some sort of IDE or an editor that can help you type your code. Okay, all right, now having said all this and having assumed that you have all this prerequisite or requirement, let's start to create something awesome. All right, good. Now firstly, let's start by creating a new PHP project. So I have XAMPP installed, so I'm just going to make sure that I navigate to the folder that is containing the files regarding the XAMPP application. Okay, all right, so have my command prompt here. All right, so let me just change this directory to C. Okay, all right, so let me see what I have in there. So I'm looking for this one here, XAMPP. Okay, XAMPP. So change directory to the XAMPP folder, and let me see what I have in there. So I have a lot of files and folders like that, but I'm interested in a particular folder called htdocs, this one here. So let me navigate to that particular folder, change directory to htdocs, this one here. Now this folder is where we actually place projects that are regarding web application, because when the XAMPP application or the Apache server is looking for a web application to run in the browser, it actually look it up inside the htdocs folder. So we are going to create a folder inside this htdocs, and there we can actually make use of the application, or we can actually point to this directory and then access whatever projects we have in there. If you place it in any other directory, it will not work. It will not work. So please pay attention to that. Make sure that you host or you create the folder inside this htdocs. All right, so let me just say that I want to create a folder called user auth. Okay, so I'll say mkdir make directory. Okay, so say that user auth. So that is the name of the folder I want to create. So when I create this folder, I just want to change the directory to user auth like that. Okay, so what is the problem? Okay, let me just create the directory first. So it is telling me that there is already a folder called user auth. Let me see what is in there. Okay, so there is practically nothing in there. All right, so now that I've been able to create this folder, okay, I'm going to open it using my Visual Studio Code ID. So all I have to do is just say code and then dots, give a space and then press dot, and this is supposed to open it inside, open the project folder inside the ID. Let me maximize this one, and as you can see, I have this folder here like that. Now the first thing I want us to do is just to create a new file called index.php like that. Now why index.php? Whenever you point to this project directory inside a browser, okay, it looks for an index file that is seated right inside the root folder. Okay, if it doesn't find it, it is going to present you with something different. So normally Apache servers or most web servers out there, what they do is that whenever you visit the root folder or the root directory of the web application, it looks for an index file. So we need to create that file that by default the server can point to. All right, so let me just say I'll open a PHP tag here, and I'll say echo, and I'll type, let's say, index page. Oh, what is wrong? Let me turn off my autosave, and also let me say that I want to increase the font size for this ID a little. Okay, so let me send it to, for instance, maybe 17. Okay, 17. Okay, still kind of small. Let me go like an 18. I think this is okay. All right, so let me say echo, I say index page. and make sure this one here is terminated, and I'll go ahead and save the file. And let me go and open my web browser so that we can actually point to the project directory. So localhost, that is what you're supposed to type, localhost. Okay, localhost, then /, then what was the name of the folder? It is actually user auth. Okay, then we just hit enter. Okay, this is giving something different, localhost, then we point to the user auth folder. Okay, yeah, so as you can see, this is what we are having so far. All right, let me go back now. Before we do any other thing, I would want to quickly move to the part where we will create a database, and then from there we can actually look at what is next. Okay, all right, so like I said, I have XAMPP installed, and it will allow me to manage my database. Okay, create database, delete database, create SQL queries, and what have you. Do you get it? Yes. If you don't have any idea about MySQL or XAMPP, managing database using XAMPP, I actually have a playlist on that. All right, I have a playlist on that, so just go ahead and check my other videos, and you'll be able to grab some of this concept. Okay, I actually demonstrated how to go and download the XAMPP software, install it, and even open the backend of the database and do some fancy stuffs over there. So check my other videos where I implemented some login systems and some registration systems as well, and other programming languages, I believe. So check that out. All right, now like I said, I've already installed my XAMPP and it is started under the hood. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to open a new tab, and I'll say localhost. Okay, and I'll say PHP my admin, like that, and then I'll just hit enter, and I expect that this thing should take me to the landing page of MySQL or the management section of PHP, so that I can browse further to the back end of the database. Okay, so as you can see, I'm here already, and this is the back end of my SQL database. Okay, now what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to navigate to the SQL part. Now when you are here, this section actually contains all the database that you currently have. Some came pre-installed, by default with the application, that is managing the application, and allows you to further create database on top of the already existing ones. So you don't have to delete them, just be mindful of them. Okay, yes, and there are actually few files. I have created a lot of database, and that's why you're seeing that we have so much going on here. So I'm just going to go to the SQL tab here, this one here, so that I can actually write SQL queries. All right, so the first thing I want to do is I want to create a database. I'm going to say that create database. Okay, and I'll name the database user auth, or let me say db underscore user auth, like that. So that will be the name of my database. Then what I can just do is that I'll hit go here, so that it will actually create the database for me. Okay, so now it's saying that MySQL has returned an empty result, and it means that whenever you see a green check, like, so it means that the query ran successfully without any error. So let me see if I actually have the database somewhere here. Refresh, click on this one here, and I am not seeing my database. So let me go to this one here, and it is right here. So sometimes the management for MySQL database, I mean the section where you have to manage a database here, sometimes it has its own configuration that time to time it creates SAP database and whatever. I don't know why those things keep happening, but just know that there are instances where you fall into those situations. Okay, so you see that it has created a SAP database called DB, and under that there are a couple of databases that I've created over there. So this one here is what we just created. So let me just say that, okay, you can expand it. So when you expand, you see there are no tables in there. Okay, there are no tables in there. So we are just going to create one table called users. Okay, so let me go back to my SQL tab, and then I'll say use user db use user db underscore user auth, and I'll terminate it. It means that use that particular database. That is what this line of code here means. So I'm just going to say create table users, and then I'll open brackets and then make sure I close it. Now inside a bracket, I need some few fields that I want to work with. First of all, I need an ID, which will be of the data type integer, and I want it to be of the length perhaps 6. Okay, and I want it to be on unsigned integer, and it should also increment, and it should also be the primary key. Okay, should also be the primary key. All right, now I also need a username, which will be of the data type varchar. I want the length to be 30, and it shouldn't be now, not now. Those are all constraints. Okay, this auto increment here will now tell the ID anytime there is a new user added, it will start from 1 and it will increment to 2 to 3 like that, and that is the essence of the auto increment. Now for every ID we want it to be unique, and that is why we are saying that this one here should be primary key. Okay, all right, now for the varchar, I mean for the username, I'm using varchar, which means variable character, and it should also not be now, comma. Then I'll move to password. Okay, password, I want it to be of small letter password, and this one I want it to be of the data type varchar. Let me say 255. Okay, because when we tend to hash it, it will be very long in length, so let's use 255 for that, not now. And I also need email, and this should be of the data type varchar, and perhaps 50 length. I mean the length should be 50. Okay, and that's okay, not now. All right, so since these are the few fields we want, and this is the last thing that we want in this table, we don't have to bring a comma again. Okay, all right, so all I'm going to do is that I'm just going to make sure I click on go here, and as you can see, whenever you see a green check like so, it means that your table was created successfully. All right, now let me go back and refresh, and as you can see now, the db user auth is having this users table. All right, good, and there are some few columns in there, which is the email, the ID, the password, and then username. So this key here is actually telling you that the ID field is a primary key. All right, now having created the database, let's go back to our ID and start to do something different. So I'm going to create one file called registration. Okay, so register.php. Now, and this one here, I am going to pull out few HTML. Now say that user auth system, like that, and maybe hyphen registration. Okay, all right. Now I'm going to go to Bootstrap's website because I said we are going to be making use of the Bootstrap library. Okay, so I'll go to Bootstrap website and I'll say getbootstrap.com. Getbootstrap.com. This is where you have to come, and then I'll go to docs. So whilst I'm here, let me just copy the whole of this one here, this one. Okay, I don't need this one. I need the one that comes with the CDN for Bootstrap and the JavaScript file as well. All right, so copy that one. Just click on this icon here and it will be copied. Go back to my IDE and I'll get rid of this one and repaste the code. So I'll say paste and change this one to user auth system. User auth system, and this one should be registration page, right? Registration. All right, we don't need this hello thing here, so let me just get rid of it. Let me just get rid of it and say that okay, let me bring it back and save it. Make sure all the files are saved. Let's go back to the browser and see what we have. So I'll go back here and then change the route to registration register.php, and as you can see, we are having hello world here. Okay, now we are going to design a simple form in this registration page that will allow us to actually input our username, the email, the password, and what have you, right? So according to the Bootstrap rule, first of all, we need to have a container there, right? So let's say dot container, and it's going to create a div with a class of container on that. Now with this, inside of this container, I'm just going to say that call LG on have 8, and I'm going to say that position absolute, position absolute, and I'll say translate middle, and I'll say that start should be 50, start 50, and then the top should also be 50, not 60. Now this will center this entire div inside the middle of the page. That's essentially what it will do. Okay, now having a container, we need to define a row. Okay, so I'll say dot row, and in the row I would have a container, columns that would actually hold the input fields. So I'm just going to say that dot call. So what I'm going to do is that I would divide this row here into two parts. So I'll say call LG, I'll say 6, so that this part, think I can put some image over there, image img with a source, no source yet, so let me just say that image here. Okay, all right, now let me go outside and create another column. So I'll say dot call LG6, and in this part I'm just going to pull out some few forms like that. So let me say I have first of all a form tag. Okay, and I would expand this form. Now within the form, let me say that I have a div with a class called mb3, and I need a label. So this label, first of all, I say that I'll need a username. So the label is for a username, and I'll say username here. Now when I go underneath this one, I'll say that I need an input field with a class. So this one should actually be a text field, right? So the class should be form control. Form control. I need a few padding on that 3, maybe a padding of 3. And I want the shadow to be none, shadow none. And I also say that there should be some few placeholder, which is username. Let's say enter your username here, like that. All right, good. Now I'm just going to duplicate this one here and change it to a password. Okay, password. Make sure the label for attributes is changed to password, and the type of this input should now be password. All right, so I'll say enter your password. Okay, now we also need another field called maybe email. Yes, we need an email. Yes, we need an email. And yes, so we change to email. This one here, so the type should be of email. All right, so you say enter your email. All right. Okay, so we also need one part where we can actually use to submit the form, a button that when we click on it, it can actually submit the form. So we don't need a label for this. We actually need what we call a button. So I'll say button, and I want the class to be btn, and this button I want it to be the primary type, and then the width I want it to be 100. So I'll say maybe register. Okay, that should be the text that will be displayed on the button. Let me save this, go back to the page and refresh to see what we have so far. Oh, so as you can see, this is what we are having now. All right, so the button, let me give it a padding of 3 so that it kind of looks like the input fields. All right, so this is still not taking effect. Why? Okay, so it has now taken effect. That is fine. Now we actually need to process the registration form. All right, so we need to process the registration form so that it actually goes. Let me correct this typo here. It's supposed to be username, not username. Okay, all right, we need to process the registration form okay, so that it will now validate the user's input, and from there we can actually insert the user's information into the database. Okay, now in order to do that, we need to establish a database connection. But before then, these input fields here, we need a way to identify them on the server end. And so therefore there is an attribute called name, and that is what the PHP script is going to recognize. Okay, so for the username, I'm just going to say the name here should be username. All right, username. And for the password, I'll say that name should be password. And for the email, I'll say that name should be email. All right, and for the button, we also need an identifier for that. We say that this one should be login. All right, okay, now this action part here, let me just remove it for now, and I would pull an attribute called method. I want this method to be post. Okay, I want the method for this registration form to be post. That way, whatever that is entered here would not be visible in the browser's URL. Now there are actually tons of methods that are associated with forms when it comes to web application. Okay, one is just the post method. There's another one called get, but we are using post for now. All right. Okay. Now, on top of um this registration form, I'm just going to open a PHP tag here. Okay, I'm going to open a PHP tag here, and I'll make sure it is terminated. Okay. All right. Now let me say there's a comment process registration form. All right. So in order to do that, like I said, we need to create a database connection. So in order to do that, I'm just going to say that connect to database. So I'm going to use what we call PDO. So you can use MySQL to do that, but it as though it is no longer secure. Okay, it is as though it's no longer secure. So more often you're going to be seeing people use PDO. PDO is an advanced form of the MySQL connection to, how do you call it, interface. Okay, yes. So just try, if you don't know how to use a PDO, learn how to use it. It is much more secure than MySQL. Okay, so you're going to be using PDO in this session. I'll say con, okay, and I'll say equal to new PDO, and I'll open bracket. Now this takes few arguments. So the first one, we are going to say that we want to point to the type of database we are using. So we are using MySQL database, and we bring a colon. Then we tell the host for this particular database. I'll say that equals, so we are using a local host, equal local host, like that, and I'll terminate it. And I'll say that we also have another parameter that we need to give it, or argument we need to give, which is the DB name, and this one should be equal to DB underscore user auth. That is the name of our database. Make sure this one here is also what terminated, right? Okay, now let me go outside this one and say that we need what we call a password field. All right, so now the password is empty, so we are just going to leave it like that. And we also need a username. So the username is actually going to be empty, right? Good. So first, let me just say the root should be here, the username should be here, and the password should be empty here, like that. All right. And this is because when I was opening my PHP admin, I mean the backend of the database, we didn't type any password. So if you know you have a password on your database, you make sure you provide a password as such. All right. So let me say that I want to test this connection. I'll say if con instance of PDO. All right, if it is an instance of PDO, just echo maybe yes, connected. So what it's essentially happening is I'm trying to say that represent a connection. So why is it giving an error? Okay, so if it is not going to give us the room, let me just leave it like that, and this one will return either true or false. So let me just go back to the browser and refresh to see what we have. Yes, so it is actually connected. As you can see, it is here like that. All right, now what we have to do is that we need to actually now register the user into the system. All right, so it means that I made a mistake somewhere here, so we need to change this one here to register. Okay, please pardon me for that. This is the registration form. Okay, all right, so we are going to say that if it's set, all right, if it is set, we're going to use the post global variable, and I'll say register, and I also say that and server, this is also a global variable, server request method, equals post then we can go ahead and process whatever that is there. So I'll say, first of all, you need to grab the username, all right, and then say that it should be, let me trim this one first. Okay, and the trim function will remove any white spaces. All right, so trim post, you know what, let me just introduce this concept. So I'm just going to create another file called functions.php, and I'll open my PHP tag, and I'll say function, and I'll say that sanitize. Now this will take one argument or one parameter. I'll say that, let's say data, we need to pass in a particular data, and that data, we will take the data and say that it should trim the data, and also remove HTML, converts everything to HTML special characters data, and then we need to say that remove is it slashes or something? Yeah, strip slashes. Yes, we need to strip the slashes and say that data, like that. And finally I can return my data. Okay, all right, now what will essentially happen is that whenever we pass in a particular data here, it will go through all these steps, make sure that there isn't any form of malicious code coming in, because there are some people, they are smart, they would want to put some sort of SQL injection in your system, and we want to prevent that. Okay, yes, so why is this thing giving an error saying that expected what? So let me just say sanitize data, okay, still same, let me leave it, I think it's the ID. So close this one and make sure that I import this one here. So I'll say include once, and I'll open bracket, single quotes. So I'll point to the root directory, and then I'll look for functions.php. So it means that now we can use the sanitize data function inside here. So I'll say sanitize data, and then I'll pass in post, I'll say username, because that was the name we gave to the username field. And I'll say that we also need what, we need a password. Let's go back and see that username, password, and email, right? Good. So on top there, password should be equal to sanitize data, and we call the post global variable and say that password, like that. We also need another variable to hold the email that is coming, so sanitize this one as such, sanitize data, and call the post global variable, and we say email, terminate this one. Also make sure the file is saved, like that. And I'm getting some sort of error here. Why? Okay, so what could be the problem? Cannot use a set on the result of an expression. Okay, if it sets post register and server request method, then I think it's supposed to be underscore. Okay, still an error. Okay, let me quickly do this one here. I'll comment this one here and I'll say that var dump server, I'll say request method. Before then, let me just echo some pre-tags. That will format this one for me properly. Make sure that these ones are actually in quotes like that, and then down here, so I'll just have to echo some pre-tag as well like that. And let me go back and refresh the browser to see what I have. Okay, so it's supposed to be an underscore. Yes, like I said, so it's supposed to be an underscore again. Okay, all right, so that is that. It is supposed to be an underscore here, so let me just cut this one here, just paste it on top of this one, and I'll comment it, and maybe I'll need it again. So all right, save this one here, and uncomment my processing. All right, okay, let's see what it gives us at the end. All right, now that we've been able to capture all the fields, we need to check if the username or email already exists. So how are we going to do that? So check if username or email already exists. All right, so I'm just going to say statement here, and I'll call my connection, and I'll say prepare. I'll put the arrow operator. I'll say prepare. So I'm actually going to use kind of object-oriented approach. So prepare the statement that is coming. So I'll say select all from the users table where the username equals to a question mark, okay, or the email is equal to another question mark. Now these are placeholders. All right, these are placeholder that will prevent SQL injection some way somehow. So I'll say statement again. All right, and I'll call the arrow function on it. I'll say execute this array for me. So first of all, I have username, comma, and I also have email. Is that not it? All right, good. So I'll make sure that this one here is terminated as such. Then I would have to say that count, and we say that statement, and we call the arrow operator and say row count like that. Now we need to perform some few if condition checks. So I'll say if the count is greater than 0. All right, if count is greater than 0, then I'll just have to say echo username already exists, and perhaps I can return from here so that it's to break the code, or can actually die code. So in order to make this one more meaningful, or not to give a hint that much, I'll say that username or email already exists. That way, if the person is not having a good intention, the person wouldn't be able to really decipher which one is already existing or not. Just that we just have to throw the message that username or email is already existing. Okay, so if it is nothing like that, then we can say else. We can insert into the database, insert user into the database. All right, so I'll come with another statement. I'll say that equal to, call my connection variable. I'll say that prepare, I'll open bracket, I'll say insert into users, the users table, right? And I'll open bracket. I'll say what fields do we need? We need a username field. We also need a password field. And we also need an email field. Now we go outside this and you say values. Let me open another bracket. So we are going to use placeholders. So question mark, question mark, question mark. How many placeholders? 3. It must correspond with how many of the fields you have in here. All right. Now you just have to make sure that this one here is terminated like that. All right. Now let me go ahead and say statement execute, call the array. I'll say I would want to execute the username, and I would also want to execute the password, and I would also want to execute the email like that. Now make sure that this one here is terminated. Okay, so if the registration is successful, we need to redirect the person to a login page. So let's say redirect the user to the login page. All right, so I'll say header. So in order to do that, we use the header function. Okay, so header, then you open string, double quotes. I'll say location, and I'll say that move the person to login.php. all right, now finally I can say die, or I can exit. All right, okay, now let's try out this code. Still I'm getting some error somewhere, I don't know why. Let me go back and refresh. Cannot use a set on the result of an expression. Okay, so let me say that I want to get rid of this one here. See if it still gives the same error. Okay, so another way that I can beat this thing is just say that if server request method, so if the server request underscore method is actually post, means something was posted to the server, right? Good, then we can actually go ahead and do all these things, right? Good. So let me go back and refresh, and now we don't have any error. Is that good? So let me just say that I want this one here to be username. I want it to be user1, and the password I want it to be maybe admin123, and I'll say admin@gmail.com. Now when I hit on register, if it is successful, it needs to redirect us to the login page, right? So I register here and it is redirecting us to the login page, and because we have not created that file yet, that is why it is saying that the file wasn't found. But then let's go and cross check from our database if the result has been inserted. So I'll go back to my SQL tab and I'll say use db underscore user auth. Okay, then I'll say select all from users, select all from the users table, and I'll hit on go here. So as you can see, we are not having one record in the database like that. Okay, now let's quickly go ahead and create this login page here. So I'll say login.php, and I think we have to make use of most of the things here. So I'll say I'll copy all these things and paste them here. But then for this one, we will change it to login, and as such, the name here should also be login. Now we need how do you call it? We need the username and password in order to be able to log in, right? So let's say we don't need this email part here. We don't need this email part here. Let me get rid of it. We only need the username and password. Okay. All right. Now let's say change this one to login. Let me refresh and see what we are having. So now it has been able to find the login page. Okay. All right. So here, what we are going to do is that we need to connect to the database as usual. Okay, need to connect to the database as usual, but I'm going to do something. I'm going to start a session at the top here. I'll say session, just say session start. Okay, session start, session underscore start, like that. Now having started a session, we need to connect to the database. So it is just there like that. The database connection is already here. Now we need to check if the user is already logged in or not. So how do we do that? So I'll say that check if user is already logged in. Check if user is already logged in. So I'll say that if it's set, now say I'll call the session global variable, and I'll say maybe the key that we've given to the user. Whenever user login, we'll give a key to the person. So let's say user ID. Okay, if this one is set, it means the person is already logged in. So I'll just have to say that header, say location, the person should still be in the dashboard. All right, so we are going to create that dashboard again. Create a dashboard. Okay, so it should be dashboard.php. all right, now we can exit, or we can die the code here so that it wouldn't continue to process the rest of the code. Okay, now if it is nothing like that, then we need to process the login form. If it is nothing like that, then we need to process the login form. So we say if the server request method is what post, means something was actually posted to the server. All right, so again, let me also say that yes, so something was actually posted to the server, and so therefore we need a username field and the password field. We don't need an email, right? Now we don't also need this one, to checking if the user already exists or not. Okay, so let me get rid of all this part. I don't need all these things again. You don't need all these things. So we need to actually select the user. Select the user from the database. That's it. But then we need a way to find if the username and password are correct. Alright. So I'll say that check if the username and password, check if the username and password are correct. Check if the username and password are correct. Alright, so how do I do that? Again, I'm just going to say statement, then I'll say equal to, then I'll call my connection, I'll call the arrow function or the arrow operator, and I'll say prepare. I'll say select all from, select all from the users table, okay, where the username equals to question mark, like that. All right, equals to question mark, and okay, equals to question mark, like that. And I think I can terminate this one here like that. Now say statement equal, statement execute, then I'll call the brackets, and I'll call the array symbol or the square brackets. Now I want to execute my username, right? The username that is actually coming in. So I don't need to terminate it over there. Come here and terminate it. Now I'll say that I need to have a variable called user to store the user. I'll say statement, I'll say fetch, like that. Now there is actually a way that we need to say that the password, you see that when we view the database and the user record that was inserted first, the password is just plain like that. We don't want that. So I'll go back to the registration part, and here I'm just going to do some few implementation. Okay, so the password that is actually going, now that I've actually stored it here, okay, I can go ahead and do something here. I'll say hashed password, hash password equal to, I'll say password hash. Now this is actually a function that is present in PHP. So I'll say we need the string that we need to hash. Okay, so we need to provide the password variable here, and we need to tell it that what type of password hashing algorithm do you want us to use. So we say that password default, okay, we need to use the password default, yes, this one here, like that. All right, so having done this, I think that we need to now insert this one instead of this one. All right, good. So we'll go ahead and create another user before we actually do the login. All right, so in the login field, what I want us to do is that we need to verify the password, right? So I'll say that if user, okay, if user and the password verify, now the password verify is a method or is a function that works with the password hash that we just used, okay, or we just implemented. So if password verify, it takes two arguments. One is what, the password that has been submitted by the user, and then one is the one that is coming from the database, so we need to access that and say that password like this. If it is, it means that the user is actually a valid user, so we can set some session variables here. So set session variables for the person or for the user. So I'll say that first of all, call the session global variable. Then first of all, I need a user ID, then I'll equate 2 to the user and should be ID. All right, and I also need one to hold the username, so session, and I'll say username should be equal to the user, and I'll say username here like that. All right, now if all these things are actually true, I don't need this part again. If all these things are actually true, I need to redirect the user. Okay, I need to redirect the user. Okay, to the dashboard. So say dashboard.php. Okay, now if this ones are actually incorrect, this is incorrect, we need to display some error. So I'll say that error equal to incorrect or invalid username or password. Then I'll terminate this one. Then I think I can return here as well. All right, now on the login page here, let's do some few things. On top of this row. Okay, on top of this row, let me say there should be an h1 saying that maybe login. Okay, login. Now under that, let me say I want to open some few PHP tags so that we can display the error. So I'll say if it's set, error, okay, then I can break this statement here. If it's set error, okay, I'm missing one of the bracket. So if it sets error, then let's just have some paragraph. So say that PHP echo error like that. Then make sure this one here is terminated as such. Okay, then we need to say end if, PHP end if. Okay, make sure it is terminated like that. Okay, I think we are pretty okay. So let's go ahead and actually let's register first. Okay, let's register a user first. So I'll say that maybe Ernest, let's say user 2, and we say user 1 2 3, and I'll say that user 1 2 3 at gmail.com, and I'll hit register, and now you can see that we are redirected to the login page. Right now let's try to say that we want to log in, but before then let's check if the data is actually present. So I'll refresh the entire page. Okay, so again I need to use the database use db underscore user auth, and I'll say select all from users. Okay, then I'll make sure I run this one here, and you see, as you can see now, the password is actually hashed. It is actually hashed. All right, now let's go and then say the username is user2, and then the password was think user 123, and then hit on login. Okay, so it means that the code is working, and now it has redirected us to the dashboard. Let's quickly create the dashboard. Okay, so I'll say dashboard.php, and I'll open PHP tags here. Now I have to start a session, so I'll say session start underscore start. All right, now what I'll do here is that let me just terminate this one and then go back to my index page. Okay, you know what, let's use the index page. Okay, let me just leave it like so. So that we do something else with the index page. So I'll say that I need the files that are in here, I mean the HTML template. I need it. I'm going to paste it here like that, and I'll say that I need only I need only this part. So I'll say dot row, and this row I'll need entire columns. I'll say dot call lg, I'll say maybe 8. All right, then I'll need an h1. I'll say welcome, and I would say that's PHP. So I'll say echo session username. All right, I believe I can terminate this one here. Okay, so let me go back and refresh and see what we have. Undefined hierarchy username, really? Okay, so on the login page here, we are trying to set, okay, I didn't spell it well. All right, so username, and this one is also supposed to be username, like that. So let me go back and refresh. Still undefined hierarchy username. Okay, so the session that it's initially held before actually logging in the person is different, so it will be kind of a problem, right? So we first have to log out before. So let me just create another file called logout. So logout.php, then I'll open PHP tag. I would have to start the session. Session starts. Then if the session is started, then we can actually destroy the session. So we can say session destroy, and if we have destroyed a session, then we can actually redirect. So location, login.php. All right, so on the dashboard, I'm going to have another column called set 8. I'm going to have another column called maybe, I'll say anchor tag, and this one I want you to point to logout.php. So I'll say logout here, logout. Now let me just say that this should have a class called btn and btn danger, some few paddings like padding of 3. See what we have. So refresh this one. Okay, so let me just log out and we are back on the login page. So let me say user 2 and say user 1 2 3, then log in and see what we have. So you see that it is actually fetching the username for us, right? Exactly. Now if I try to go back to the login page, let's see what happens. It's because we are logged in, and so it is not allowing us to go back to the login page. All right, so let me quickly log out and we are back on the login page, right? Let me go to maybe unsplash.com. Let's get some nice image to fix at our various pages. Let me say unsplash. So unsplash. Okay, I think my internet's a bit slow, so let's search for maybe login pictures. Login pictures. Okay, I type something different. So okay, I think we can actually okay, can we make use of this one? Perhaps. Okay, so let's try and then make use of this one. So I just copy this URL here. Let me see if I can even get the URL from copy image link. Okay, all right. Now on the login page where we have the image section here, source, I'll just paste this link here. And for the registration page as well, let's just say that also the image section, I'll paste the same thing. All right, now let me save all these files, save all of them, and go back and refresh. Okay, so we are not getting the image. And what is the problem? Let me see the link that was even all right, so there is actually a problem with the link. So what I'll do is that let me just save this one as image. No, I don't like the file type. I don't like the file type, so let me actually use this one. It is loading. Okay, so let me download this one as medium file. Okay, now we have it downloaded, so I'll just have to say I'll browse to my downloads folder, and then I'll copy this one here. So I'll go back to the drive C. I'll go back to drive C where I have my exam folder, and I'll go to my htdocs folder where we have our file hosted, and I'll look for user auth, this one here. All right, then I'll create another folder called maybe assets, and then inside the assets I'll have another folder called images. Then here I can paste the image here and I'll name it maybe background. Okay, now let's go back to our IDE, and we have this folder here. So So instead of pointing to this entire thing, let me just delete it. Now say that go into the root folder, look for asset folder, and there is a folder called images. Look for background.jpg. Okay, all right, save this one. Let me go back to the page and refresh. So let me go to the registration part, and as you can see, we are having the image like that. So this image is too huge, so I'll say that there should be a class on this one called class set img fluid. Save it and come to refresh, and as you can see, this is what we are basically having. All right, good. Now on top of this one here, on top of this row, let me just have one h1 tag and say that maybe register here, and that is kind of okay. That's kind of okay for now. That's kind of okay. Now let's copy the same thing to the login page. So I'll place this one, I'll replace it, and I think we are cool to go. Now on this page here, okay, on this page here, let me go ahead and copy the HTML template that we have here to the index page, and I'll paste all these ones, and I can say that user auth system, and maybe I'll say that choose action here, choose action here. So I don't need all of these ones. Okay, so I think I will have to delete some of these ones. All right, so let me save it to see what we have. I don't need a form tag. I also don't need these ones. Okay, so I only need, let's say, .call lg and say 8. So inside of this, I'll have a link to the login page. Login. It's PHP. I'll say login here. So I'll say that this one should have a class called btn and btn warning, and padding I want it to be 3, and the width to maybe like 50, and I'll have another one called register here. So say maybe dark. So register.php like that. So let me go to the page and see what we have. Yeah, so this is what we are having. So let's say if I choose this one, it should send me to the login page. Now on the login page, let's have a way of getting back to so right underneath this button, let me say there should be another div mb3. I'll say maybe anchor tag. So if you're on the login page, you might want to go to the how do you call it, the registration page, right? So I'll say, okay, let's just point to the the index page. So that'll be the root folder. So I'll just say do this for me. Okay, and let me just go and do the same thing. So go back to maybe home page. So this one should have a class, say btn, then btn primary, and padding of maybe 3, width should be maybe 20. 50 is okay. Let me copy the same thing into the registration page. So right underneath this button, I'll have that here, and I think we should be okay. All right. Okay. So let's go back to the home page, and let's go to the registration page. Go back to the home page, and let's actually try and register one more person. So I'll go back to the home page and register one more person and say that another user, let's use actually a real name. So let's say James Bond. Okay, I'll say J1234, and then I'll say James Bond at gmail.com. and when I hit on register, we are here. All right, now I'll say James Bond, and let me just say J12345 and hit on login and see what we get. So we are getting undefined variable email. So let me go back and see what is actually there. So that is happening on the login page, right? So login, login. Undefined variable email. So where could that possibly be coming from? Okay. So this select part here. I don't need this. I don't need this part here. I don't need this email. I don't need this email here. So what I'll do is just say that I need this email as well. All right. Yes. Let's go back and test it out again. Refresh. I'll say James Bond. I'll say J12345. So we're actually not getting any output, and what could be the problem? So let's say James Bond, and then I'll say J1234, and we are back on the dashboard. So when there is an error, it is not actually able to print that out. So here I was saying that if a set error, okay, if it is set error, just do these things for me. But then okay, user, if an error here, okay, I think I need to get rid of the return statement so that maybe. So let me log out and say James Bond again, and then let's just decide to type a wrong password, J12345, and then login. So invalid username or password, that is what we are essentially getting. So let me type the correct in James Bond. I'll say J123 and then log in to see again. Okay, so it's 1234. So James Bond, and then J1234, and then hit on login, and here we are. Yes, so I believe that you've actually learned a lot, and there are a couple of things that you can do. You can go ahead and check the length of the username, check the length of the password, even check some special characters for the password, and what have you. There's so much you can do with this registration and login system feature. Okay, but like I said, this is just a basic approach, and for you to get some understanding, and you can build on that actually. Right? Yes, so that is basically how to go about it, and that is it for today's tutorial. We've covered everything you need to know to create a simple login system with PHP. Remember, user authentication system is a critical feature for most web applications, and it is essential to protect your users data. All right, so I hope you found this tutorial helpful, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below, and kindly like the video if it is worth watching, and also subscribe to the channel. That way I would be motivated to put in much effort to create amazing content for you guys. And once again, thanks for watching. See you in another one.